Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
And once again, welcome to the back of the range. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 213. Well, for those of you that followed the content on my social media channels and Maridoe Golf Club's social media channels, or perhaps you watched the live broadcast on the Golf Channel, I don't think anyone could have asked for a better start to the college golf season. Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona State paired together in the final group on the final day. Just star power all over the place. Logan McAllister, Chris Gotterup from the Sooners. You got Cole Hammer and the Cooties from Texas. Summerhays, Sisk, Riggs Johnson from Arizona State. An incredible finish. Cameron Sisk captures the individual title in the playoff. And then Oklahoma edges out Texas by a stroke for the team title. The tournament was full of excitement. Maridoe looked absolutely incredible. They have fully recovered from the winter freeze earlier this year that decimated the golf course. Just a hugely successful event for everyone involved. As always, I've been at Maridoe so many times. The great people there that have supported the back of the range by inviting me back time after time again to cover tournaments. Can't thank them enough. The entire family at Maridoe, they're incredible people. I don't know what else to say. I tried to bring some of that mojo up to Chattanooga with me for the Scenic City Collegiate held at the Honors Course. Incredible facility, lots of great teams in the field. Georgia, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, Clemson, Tennessee, just to name a few. And, well, it rained. It rained a lot. It rained so much that the tournament was canceled. So that was a real big disappointment to get all the way up there and no tournament. But, got to look at the silver lining. I got to meet a lot of good coaches, reconnect with some of the players that I followed for quite some time. Not all was lost, and got some good ideas about some other tournaments that I might need to check out later this year or even in 2022. So all good. These things happen. Special shout out to my buddy Ryan Frazier. Make sure you are following him on Twitter at Agora Golf. That's Agora Golf, Agora Golf. He helped me get out of Chattanooga, get down to Atlanta to catch a flight home. Solid guy. Definitely owe him a dinner at Colonial. Speaking of Colonial, yes, I'm going back out on the road in a little over a week, back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area for the Colonial Collegiate. This might just be the best field in college golf this year, so I'm not going to miss this one. So again, as a reminder, make sure you're following on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you need the links, go to the website, thebackoftherange.com. As you all know, this is Ryder Cup week. The Europeans will be looking to retain the cup on foreign soil. Now, the last time that the Americans accomplished this feat was way back in 1993. Just to refresh your memory, we won the Ryder Cup in 91 at Kiowa Island, and then we went over to the Belfry in 93 and retained it. My guest on this episode was a member of that victorious U.S. squad in 93. Jim Gallagher Jr. is at the back of the range this week to talk about his Ryder Cup experience, his start in the game, the undeniable truth that he is not the best golfer in the Gallagher household, and we also talked a bit about junior golf. Now, he's won multiple times in the PGA Tour. He's doing phenomenal work at Golf Channel, and he also has his own podcast. I mean, it's like Jim and we're the same person. Jim is the host of the Only One Shot Golf podcast. He has incredible guests that join him each and every week. They talk about everything around the junior golf space. He has college coaches, former players, really a great collection of guests. So make sure you check out the show notes of this episode because I put in a link on how you can find Jim's podcast. So make sure you check that out. Don't forget, keep following on social media. Lots of cool announcements on the way. Excited to share some really, really exciting news with you. But for now, let's get this episode started. Jim, welcome to the back of the range. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today. Looking forward to our chat, and we'll try to keep it simple and long-winded as I normally am. Yes. I like to talk, as you know.
I love it. I feel like I'm just going to be kind of. I don't feel like I'm going to be pulling a lot of weight on this episode. I mean, I got a PGA Tour veteran, multiple-time winner, Ryder Cupper, analyst, a podcaster. I don't even need to be here. I'm just going to hit record, go get a sandwich, and I'll come back and we'll be done, right?
Well, something like that. That's one thing somebody said, what a theory. I get to talk and get paid to talk, something I do pretty good. But when you get to 60 years old, you just hope somebody listens to you at this point.
I think we can find some people to listen to the stories that you're going to be able to share. I don't think there's going to be any problem with that. You just got back. I know, we're going to talk about your work that you're doing at the Golf Channel right now, whether it's in a studio or it's on a golf course, but we've bumped into each other at the U.S. Women's Am and then the U.S. Amateur at Oakmont. And then that was my last leg of my trip, but you kept going and you just got back from the Solheim Cup. I mean, gosh, anytime you get to play for your country, what was your experience and your takeaway before we talk about your career? Talk to me about your experience and takeaway from this year's Solheim Cup in Inverness.
Well, I thought the golf course presented itself just awesome. It's a great golf course, and I thought it was perfect for the ladies. Going into it, I would say probably 3 months ago, Europe didn't look like they had a very strong team. And then all of a sudden, 3 months later, their players start winning, start playing well. And when they came in, now it's easy to say it afterwards, but I felt like Europe was going to be tough to beat. I know a lot of people say, hey, Americans are on home soil. There won't be many fans because of travel restrictions. And that was true. But it's something about the Europeans. They embrace the underdog role, whether it's in the Ryder Cup or whether it's in the Solheim Cup. They've always embraced that kind of, I'm the underdog, and they run with it. And you know what? They played great. It was they got off to that great start the first day, got the Americans down. There were a lot of people there. It was really kind of a cool atmosphere with the amphitheater. They used number 1 and 10, which are next to each other, but they actually teed off in the same spot, which was
really?
Right in the middle of the amphitheater. Yeah, so that was really cool. And it's actually a little putting green between 1 and 10 tee, but they used that as the tee box. And that was really a cool concept coming out there. So, you had all these thousands of people there and all that. But second day, afternoon, they kind of made a rally, a few more fans. But I'm telling you, on Monday, the final day, there were so many people out there. It was just unbelievable. The atmosphere was really good, but it got quiet. And for the Europeans, that's what they want. And I think that happened. They got off to a lot of blue on their side, and they played great, and they played good enough to win. And they're a good team. They got a lot of good players, and that's the thing about, I don't know so much the Ryder Cup, but more on the Solheim Cup. Most of them are LPGA members, and they're friends. And in that 1 week, they're not, and now they're back to friends. So there was some rules controversy, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But overall, they're friends, and the bottom line is golf won again. Women's golf was promoted in a great way, and I was just honored to be part of it, and a small part of it, sitting out there watching some good golf the whole week.
Yeah, I saw the rules controversy, and I don't know, you really don't want any sort of issues like that, and it's just so crazy how whenever there's any sort of rules controversy or anything of that nature, it always sparks so much media attention. I wish that wouldn't happen because it just feels like you're going after, it almost feels like clickbait, trying to get attention into a really great event. And they're going after something very, very minute that is like, hey, these things happen. I'm sure it was not intentional. I just hate seeing things like that happen in really the marquee event for women's golf every 2 years.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, there was a rules meeting. They all were aware of it, that the official or the rules person can jump in and do that. And that was brought up about picking up the ball or blah, blah, blah. And Madeline, and I know her personally, she's a sweet kid. It was not intentional. Yeah. She just reacted. I mean, and to Nellie and Allie's point, they were just playing. They had no idea, and Missy Jones, who's one of the best LPGA officials, went by the rules she was presented with. I don't like the rule, but it was done correctly. The problem was, and we know what Twitter's like and social media, everybody has an opinion, and poor Nellie, she got abused for it.
Oh yeah.
And so did Madeline. And I heard some guys, walking up. That's the thing. You usually don't hear that at the Solheim Cup, but you would hear players like, hey, don't choke, don't embarrass yourself. And it was just like I don't like it in any of that. I mean, I don't mind cheering and having a good time, but I was close enough to Madeline when the guy said it, and I was like, really? And that's just not fair. But to all their credit, they came out, they presented themselves well, and it was a tough one. And nobody won in that situation. Missy was in a bad spot. The players were in a bad spot. And fortunately, it did not affect the final outcome. That's what I was concerned about.
Sure.
if it's a half point or a 1 point, then it really goes down. But they went by the rule they were presented with. Whether you like it or dislike it, maybe that's something that happens. But, I guess the rule is that when you're playing match play, let them get their own ball and go with that. But we all do it naturally. We don't even think about it when we're playing match play. And I think that's what Madeline did. And then to her credit, she came back that final day, which was ironic because she's playing against Allie Ewing, who she was with in the group.
Yeah.
And I know both those young ladies very well. I've known Allie since she's 10 years old. She played on the golf team with my daughter. And so for me as an announcer, it was interesting because I'm sitting there with two of my friends. And I've got to stay right down the middle. And I didn't bring up the controversy one time because it was over. It's a moot point at that point. And I think that's the thing. And I hope everybody gets over it and they can continue because they're great kids. I mean, Nellie is a wonderful player and a good person. Same with Madeline and Allie. They really, it was just an unfortunate situation.
Yeah. And I think just to your point about match play, professionals don't play a lot of match play. I mean, you've seen it at the USGA events where it's US Junior. I saw it a lot at the US Junior at CCNC where you'd have officials pulling these two kids aside and kind of giving them like a 2 or 3 minute, kind of a reminder of how to play match play. And you just don't see a lot of match play. So I can completely understand, even at the highest level, even a professional not thinking about the intricacies and the rules of match play. So I'm glad that was a little blip and it's done. And we'll have to see if the U.S. can figure out a way to, go across the pond and bring that cup back to the United States. So,
yeah, it was, and like I said, it was great. It was well played by everybody. An official should never be the story,
right,
or even a part of the story. But in this case, that's where the rule fell in. And to Missy's credit, I mean, she didn't do anything wrong either. But it's all going to go by the wayside, and nothing was intentional. But when we look back at it, women's golf was put on a showcase. They did a great job with it. Great fans, great support, and I was just happy to be part of it.
We're talking about women's golf. Perfect segue. Are you currently the best golfer in your house right now? I mean, are you even in the top 5, top 3? I mean, where do you rank right now? Jim Gallagher Jr. You're not even the best golfer in your household right now, are you?
No, I told you that at Oakmont. And the only reason I'm better tthan Elizabeth is she doesn't hardly play, and I can still get her. But she can out-hit me sometimes if she really gets on one, But no, I'm going to say because Mary Langdon, my oldest, qualified for the Mid-Am, so Shep pulled her up in the rankings. Kathleen just got done playing LSU, so she's obviously, my wife's won 12 state Am. Thomas, I'm trying to think if I can beat Thomas, but his wife's having a baby this week, so
he's distracted.
He's
distracted.
We're probably 4 and 5.
Okay.
Yeah, we're 4 or 5, and the grandkids are beating me now. So you know what? You just drop your ego at this point. You just go out there and try to enjoy it and get used to getting beat. It's no fun. I can tell you that. I walk off, I shake their hand, and I go back and say, man, I either need to practice or just I've taught them too much. I think that's the problem. I've taught them too much.
That's what it is. You got to stop sharing all this knowledge. Now you're a son of a teaching professional, so you have this great start in the game up in Indiana, and you had, state Am and state opens to your career, to your credit, and then obviously you go play collegiately at the University of Tennessee, have a great All-American career, and we'll talk about getting in onto the PGA Tour. But like I said, just the household. I have this, just love this stat where Kathleen, your daughter who played LSU, she wins the Mississippi State Women's Amateur, obviously, in 2013. Then your other daughter, Mary Langdon, wins it in 2014, where she beats Kathleen in the final. Then your wife is like, well, this is, I'll have I'm done with this, garbage. I'm going to get into the mix and I'm going to go capture another one. She wins her 12th the following year in 2015. And then Kathleen gets upset apparently and just wins it in 2016. So you're, this is kind of in that period where you've played a little bit of Champions Tour, but you're kind of tapering off your playing career on the Champions Tour around those 4 years. When you look back at those 4 years, just as a, proud husband and father, how much fun was that for you?
It was a blast. And a funny story that when Mary Langdon, she was a soccer player and basketball player, and she played some golf around Mississippi, but not much. And then I guess, through time, the doctor said, no more soccer, your hip flexors can't take it, blah, blah, blah. I think she came up to me her junior year in high school, and she said, Dad, I want to play college golf. And I go, okay. And one thing I did, and this is kind of a cool advice, and I don't know if you should do it. It's like paying players, but to get my kids, it's like I didn't give them an allowance. But if they played 9 holes, I gave them $5. If they played 18, I gave them 10. If they hit balls for 30 minutes, I gave them $5. So I went out there and I did that with the kids. And for Mary Langdon, she was driven like that. And then I told her if she broke 80, I'd double it. If she broke par, I'd double it. Well, $4,000 later. And you cannot con your way out of that. And I know that's a lot of money, but I was really stupid. That's why I don't gamble. It's a good reason not to gamble. But that was a pretty big allowance. So she went to college with $4,000 based on that. But I caddied for her when she played Sissy. And I think it was maybe the round of 16, first or second round. And I'm caddying for Mary Langdon, and I get out there and I'm trying to encourage her and I'm telling her all the great things she can do. And I did say this, and it must have been loud enough for Sissy to hear it. I think Sissy had about a 3-footer. I said, your mama ain't never missed a putt that long in her life. And she misses it.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I swear I was not doing gamesmanship. I was trying to convince my daughter.
Oh, my God.
So the next hole, they're playing, they got the same clubs, and they're on a cart together, and my wife hits Mary Langdon's 9-iron.
Oh, no.
And, yes, and so we got to call it on her. And I said, Mary, nobody on the side that's watching this match knows this, so just go hit this close, and we'll just go to the next tee and not say a word.
Oh, my God.
Long story short, Sissy ends up beating her in extra holes. And I was so proud of Mary Langdon because she took her mama all the way there. And Sissy looked at me, and she was going to play in the afternoon. I said, so do you want me to caddy for you? And she looked at me like, no.
Oh, my gosh. That's a crazy dynamic, though, where
it is.
I don't think I've ever heard that. I mean, that's, mother and daughter going at it in a state. I mean, this isn't, playing 9 holes for whoever loses has to, do the chores and clean the dishes. I mean, this is serious stuff. And I'm just thinking the dynamic in your household about that's incredible.
Well, it was crazy because, and I'm the caddy, and I'm trying to be a good husband because I know my wife can probably win it. Mary Langdon wasn't quite there yet in her skill level.
Right.
But, and Sissy wasn't really on. She had surgery done. She wasn't 100%, but nonetheless, when Mary Langdon, for Mary Langdon, it gave her confidence. And I think that's why she ended up winning it 2 years later. She beat Virginia Grimes, who played on the Curtis Cup team her senior year when she was a senior in high school, which I was like, how the heck she do that?
Yeah.
But one of the dynamics is when I think Sissy beat Kathleen, the one you said where she won her 12th, and Kathleen was playing really good in college. And she looked at her mama, she goes, if you're going to beat me, you better win tomorrow. And it's just, that's the dynamics of it. But when the sisters played in the finals, that was almost as bad as mom and daughter playing.
Yeah.
Cause everybody said, who are you cheering for? I said, I ain't saying a word.
Man, if I were you, I would find some sort of a pro event to play or call someone to get an exemption or get the hell out of there, Jim. I wouldn't even want to,
I told the superintendent I'd help break bunkers, or go out, weed eat or something before watching that. But it was, and Mary Langdon got the best of her, and Kathleen was so mad, and she actually threw a ball off the green. And I'm going like, I've never seen Kathleen show that kind of,
wow.
Just anger. She never got mad, but it was just, that was cool to be all part of that and that stretch. But when Sissy, here's the story with Sissy, and I'm boring everybody with these stories. But
no, you're not. This is what I want to hear about. Yeah, you played a Ryder Cup, no big deal. But this is the juice right here. I want this.
This is way better.
All right.
So Sissy breaks her wrist in the fall. It doesn't get any better. And so I guess April rolls around, still not any better. A month before the state am, the only way she can grip the club, she normally overlapped. The only way she could grip the club was go 10 finger.
Okay.
And so she goes into that 12th, that when she wins her 12th that week with a 10 finger grip that she's only practiced. And I'm talking maybe 6 rounds, and she wins with a completely different grip than she's ever played in her entire life. That to me was a feat that's what we call her a freak.
Okay.
And she's just like, what do you mean? That's freakish to be able to change your grip and maybe play 5 or 6 rounds. Go from overlap to 10 finger and then win the state am. That was insane to me. But mentally, she's as strong mentally as anybody I've ever seen. And I think she was a big part of my success.
How did you,
How did I ever get her to marry me? That's the question of the century.
I was gonna be a lot more polite. I was gonna say, how did you meet? I wasn't going that. I mean, I'm still, I'm being professional here, Jim. I mean, no, how'd you meet?
Well, she actually played on the golf team at LSU with my little sister, Jackie.
Okay.
Jackie was always trying to fix this up. And then I guess I went up to one of the college events. I was still just on tour because I'm about 5 years older than Sissy.
Right.
Excuse me. And we just started dating. And the coolest part of the whole story is her mom had ovarian cancer. And it's not a cool story, but this is how our life has been.
Sure.
But she had ovarian cancer and they gave her like a 5% chance to live 6 months. And so I went in to visit her mom. I had lost my card and I'm in there, not so much, but feeling sorry for myself, and I'm in there and I meet her mom and here's her mom fighting for her life. And all she could talk about is me and just how proud she was. And she didn't even know me. She had just met me. And I was inspired so much by that lady that I can't tell you that just it changed my life to a point where I went from feeling sorry for myself to like life's bigger than golf. And I think at that point, and then Sissy and I get married, I'm going to say probably, maybe a year later or whatever, but her mom and her sickness, and unfortunately she passed away the week before the PGA, which was a crooked stick in Indianapolis where I'd finished third, growing up there. And she just inspired me the whole time. And then I knew, with her, just her background there is just for 10 years, she fought that disease. She got to go to Augusta with us. But the really an interesting thing is, so she passes away that week before, and I don't even know if I'm going to play in the PGA. Everybody's down and everything. And her dad says, you got to go play. Linda wants you to play. And I'll be darned, I had never met Arnold Palmer in my entire life. Huge fan, never met him. And I get paired with Rocco and Arnold Palmer the first 2 days at Crooked Stick. And I'm telling you, it gives me chills to tell the story. And I thought to myself, Linda got up to heaven and she said, God, I got a request. I could see her doing it. Walking in and said, Jim's never met Arnold Palmer. His parents love Arnold Palmer. Can he get paired with him? And I'll be darned if I don't play the first 2 days with Arnold Palmer on a golf course I represented in my home state at the PGA, which was a nightmare week before it turned into a dream week.
Yeah.
And just that's the story of people don't hear those things. And we all go through those things, but she was a big inspiration, not just for my own family, but just someone that just kind of turned my life around and put things in perspective. And Sissy's been a huge part of that as well. And she's just like that. And that's why I'm successful. That's why our kids are, enjoy the way they do it. I don't know if anyone loves to play golf more than my wife and compete. She's now playing in a Mississippi Southern, I guess a senior am.
Of course she is.
She says, I'm going to go play. So, I was like, okay, you go play. I'm going to go do a podcast.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm starting to think I got the wrong Gallagher on this podcast.
You do.
Okay. All right. Well, if you know a way to hook me up, get it in with the real talent in the family, just, see if you can make that happen for me. Before we talk a little bit about your pro career, and then we're going to talk a little more current events, but you actually, like I said, you have your own podcast, Only One Shot. It's really focused on, basically it's a fantastic tagline, how elite, disciplined, and gritty junior golfers are created. I love that line. What was your experience and your wife's experience as not just parents, but golf parents, and then thrown into the mix that you both played professionally and have these great careers? But how do you maintain that balance between, okay, we're parents, we're sending our kids off to play collegiately. Now they're off. Now it's the coach's problem. They're running the show on their team. How do you remain supportive, but also help? Did you have any issues with trying to find that balance?
I didn't have the issue with it. Sometimes coaches are intimidated by it.
Right. Yeah.
They shouldn't be, because my wife and I are the two least, if you've been around me, I'm not real intimidating. Well, I am to the boys that try to date my daughters. That's a whole different story. I just let them know I'm mentally not stable. Yeah, that's a whole different animal. We'll go down that rabbit hole somewhere else. But I just, when Mary Langdon, like I said, when she went to school, she was kind of green, and I just, with the other, I'm the parent that believes it's all about the kids.
Right.
It's not about the coaches. And I try to, when I do that podcast and I talk to these coaches, I say, guys and gals, here's the deal. It's like raising kids. If you're fair and consistent, my wife pushes this all the time, and she's so right. if you're fair and consistent, you can discipline them. You can get them to do anything. It's when you're not consistent and you're not fair is when you're going to lose them, whether it's your 8-year-old son telling him to do this or your 22-year-old senior in college. You fair and consistency is the key to that. So what I would approach, I only went to like I only was able to go to a few of Mary Langdon's college events. I tried to stay out. I never got in the way of coaching. Now that coach may not agree. But if you ask the kids, if getting involved is sitting next to a young lady who's just shot 82, is nearly in tears, and you sit there and say, hey, what's the feeling you got going out there? Tell me what you're going mentally.
Right,
and
right.
they say, well, everything is speeding up. And I'll go, here, slow your mind down, relax, go out and enjoy this. You've put the time in. Don't doubt your talents. Go. If that's getting involved, I'm guilty.
Sure.
But as far as, hey, put my kid in, never did that. We had one little incident, but it was nothing to do with, it's just a whole nother story. I'm not going to get into that. But for the most part, I mean, if the coaches were smart, I'm not saying I know everything, but I've been there. Use me. And I told them I'll help you anytime I have. I think when Kathleen was at LSU, I talked to the team before they went out to their home tournament. And it's basically, I just sat back and watched.
Right.
Did I get frustrated watching the kids? It's harder to watch, folks, and everyone knows it's playing it. I mean, I wasn't the dad that hid behind the tree, but I was the dad that tried not to show the body language.
Right.
But the kids would always say, you always encourage this, Dad. You never, the only thing they would be a little frustrated is after the round, I needed to probably give them about, 10 or 15 minutes. We'd go sit down and then we kind of go over it in that way. But, sometimes you don't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear it as a player either. But I don't think I ever, and I always try to sit back. and I think the podcast has worked because I've got to meet a lot of these coaches.
Yeah.
And the job has changed so much from when I was playing. The recruiting process is so different than when I was, even when my girls were going through it, it's changed so much. And they're building multi-million-dollar facilities, and now golf is on TV. The Golf Channel has it. Big expectations. It's big. And so it's just changed so much, and it's really been amazing. But as a parent sitting there, it's difficult. And it's like when my dad was my instructor. And I always, at the end, he's 83. He was still teaching up until a few months ago. And it was like, Dad, it was always hard to separate, and you did a good job with it, dad versus instructor. And I think that was the thing that even with my girls, I always wanted them to know I loved them. It wasn't about how they played, because playing good or bad does not define you as a person.
Yes.
And I think that's what a lot of kids struggle with. And I struggled with it. Oh, it's terrible. I struggled with it too. If I played well, I thought I could fly across the world. And then if I played bad, I was a terrible person. Yeah. And I think that's the things you struggle with. And when we came out there and you talk about how is an elite junior or how is an elite player, and I asked that question to a lot of the guests on the podcast, is, it's an inner drive to be great. It's something that separates themselves from everybody else. And that's something that, like we talk about the difference in my daughters. Mary Langdon is the most competitive. She's just like me. She's nice, but she would cut you to beat you. She would do anything, not illegally, but she would just grind it out to beat you. Well, Kathleen was more of a peacemaker, sweet and nice and not as competitive. And that was her personality. And it's like I couldn't force her to be something she wasn't. So as a parent out there listening, know your kids and know their personalities, because she still wants to win, but she wants everybody to play well. That's fine. That's who she is. Or you get one that's going to try to run you down to the end. That's their makeup. So I think that's when coaches are recruiting kids. They don't always get to know that. That's the tough part. You can sort of sense that, but you can tell you can tell the way people carry themselves. I think when you talk to coaches and for the folks listening, they're looking to see how they handle different situations, and someone who's not afraid to get in the battle. And I think that's part of the things that make elite players, that drive to be great. And I don't mean cheating. I mean, just driven.
Yeah.
And Tiger Woods, all the greats. And when you look at world number ones, some people want to be number one or are comfortable in that position, in that spotlight. And some are number one and maybe not. David Duval, Nick Price, maybe not as much. But as my wife always tells the kids or tells a junior golfer or a college golfer, or someone wants to turn pro, can you live the life? And that's the biggest question you got to ask yourself. So you're out there by yourself. Can you be disciplined enough to get out, whether you're in college, when you're a freshman in college, or even on your first time on tour, to not maybe go out and stay out too late and, you got practice at 6 a.m. Can you be on tour and not get caught up in all the baloney and stay focused on what you're doing? Because you can get caught up into that false sense of the world. And I think why I was successful in the little town we live in Greenwood, Mississippi, I go back to normal life where people struggle just to put food on the table. And I think that's part of why my perspective, and I go back to my mother-in-law, I had that ability to keep grounded even when I was on the tour, which is a fantasy world. We're playing for all this money and you're living the dream. And then you come back and you see people just struggling to put food on the table.
Yeah.
That's what kept me balanced. And I know I went off the subject there, but I think that's really important. I think for kids, when they go from being a junior golfer where your mom and dad are telling you what to do, they're putting things in order for you, and you go to and I've talked to several of these kids that are players, and they said their first year, like, oh yeah, we partied, we went out till 2, we had workouts at 5, all of a sudden a week later it caught up to me. I had to grow up as a person and figure out, yeah, there's times we can go out and enjoy my friends. And then there's times I've got to be more disciplined. And because college golf is a job. It's fun, but it's a job. I couldn't do it. I don't know. They get out and work out at 5:30 in the morning. You could lose to be there. And then, and then school didn't bother me. I didn't mind studying and working hard at school. Then you got practice. Then you got study hall and you do it all again. So you really don't have a social life. Then we throw in COVID like we have it. So kids aren't able to enjoy college as much as they had in the past, and hopefully we continue. But I think the biggest thing when a kid's looking for a school, and you look at your coach and you look at the college, and I tell them, if it's really close, and say you don't make a trip or two or you get hurt, what school would you want to go to if you didn't play that week or that year?
Yeah.
And which one would you be more comfortable with? And that's the advice I give them. And, you got to put your pros and cons. And I tell them too, I said, when coaches are recruiting you, they're selling you and feeding you filet and lobster. When you get there, you're serving it and you may be cooking it. So it's part of the recruiting process. Nothing against the coaches. That's just part of the sell. It gets you there. Now you've got to, you're there. Now you got to work for it.
You got to put the work
exactly.
In.
Exactly.
Yeah. You obviously this great career at Tennessee, and then you turn pro, you go to Q school, and, we just got done with, the FedEx Tour Championship. And obviously we just talked, I know Tour Championship's very important, but ultimately it's with these 30 guys are going to get into every major. They're getting tons of money, and that's great for them. But the drama, factor is kind of low. And then we just talked about the Solheim Cup. That was probably the biggest draw of this past weekend. But, Korn Ferry Tour finals are going on. These guys are actually getting their cards for next year. And, you're, like I said, you earned yours in '83 with a couple of your old Ryder Cup teammates, Azinger and Pavin. I know there's more, there's more avenues available now to get to the PGA Tour, whether it's, working your way through Latin America or the Forme or Mackenzie, even what Koepka did going to the Challenge Tour in Europe and coming back. There's more places to play, more ways to chase the dream. And, I know there's guys that didn't get their card this week, but, they're going to be on the Korn Ferry Tour. It's not the worst place to be, but you had to go to Q school at TPC Sawgrass, which sounds like an absolute nightmare. And I know it's headquarters of the PGA Tour, but that just sounds awful. When you look back at that week, can you still look back at that week with any sort of comfort or fond memories, or was it just an absolute nightmare? No,
it was interesting. There's a couple cool parts to that. And my story of getting on tour was not as easy. People look back, goes, you struggled? Yeah. Because I got on tour 3 different ways. So I get out of college and I go to back then you could go to the regionals or the qualifying site before you got to finals. They had you could go twice. If you missed the first one, there may be 14 spots in the first site and there's like 7 in the second. Well, I missed the first one by a shot and I got a second try and I actually made it. This is the weirdest part of my life. I went to Madison, Mississippi at Deerfield Country Club and I got through it. I got one of those 7 or 8 spots. And then that took me to the finals at Sawgrass at TPC. The year before, they played Sawgrass Country Club and TPC. talk about a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because sawgrass across the street's tougher than TPC. And TPC sawgrass had all the slopes and everything. And I actually had Craig Stadler's caddy from Augusta. And he caddied for me, several practice rounds. And he doesn't show up on time for the 5th round. And I'm going like, where's he at? Where's he at? Where's he at? Doesn't show up on time. Well, my dad, old senior, grabs the bag and says, let's go. And the guy shows up. My dad runs him off. My dad caddied the last 2 rounds with me, got me through it. I think I finished 26th. I never hit it in the water at 17. That was always a nightmare.
Yep.
But I got through and I said, oh, yeah, I got my card. Everything's great. Well, I only got in like 1 or 2 tournaments through May. And I went like, what the heck? I was Monday qualifying on the Florida swing because I'd only got in. Back then, you reshuffled after the West Coast. Well, I think I only got in 1 or 2 tournaments. My first tournament was at San Diego. I either shot 70-70 or 71-71 and missed the cut by a shot. I shot under par and missed the cut by a shot. I went, oh, my gosh, I'm not ready for this big-time show,
Yeah.
And I think I played Pebble, so I played 2 events on the West Coast. Well, then I get reshuffled. I don't get in anything through Florida except I Monday qualify for Doral, make my first cut, but the reshuffle isn't until after May. And we had the infamous meeting in May at Houston. That was really, I guess, would have been my 4th event. And Jim Colbert's the head of the board, and we just like, hey, we're not getting in. He goes, just play better. Well, that went over not real well with everybody. But you know what? To Jim Colbert's credit, he's right. If you play better, it takes care of everything.
Oh, sure.
But when you're not getting in, that's not helping you. Long story short, finished the year out. But I think tour school for me, just having my dad jump on that bag and finishing with me. And I think the 5th round might have even got washed out totally. I'd already played 12 holes. And for some reason back in those days, they'd wash out the whole round, which was crazy. Now, it may have been more fair, but it got washed out. I was still playing about the same. So I had to go back to tour school the next year, and I missed by a shot or 2. And I'm thinking, wow, this was crazy. I finished 149th on the main list. I can probably get in 8 or 10 events. Well, they had what they call the Tournament Players Series, which is what the Korn Ferry Tour is now.
Right.
But there was only like 6 or 8 events, and the leading money winner got their card. I won 2 tournaments, and the first tournament I won was the Magnolia Classic in the state of Mississippi. You're seeing where this is going now.
I see it.
And which is now the Sanderson. And I went again. I beat Kenny Perry. I beat Zinger actually in the playoff there in Hattiesburg. And then the next win I get is out in Albuquerque. I beat Kenny Perry. And so I'm leading money winner. Keep my card. I lose it again. And then I have to go back through these Monday qualifiers. Long story short, and I get it back, I guess, in 88. And lo and behold, I kept it after that. So my story to get to the tour was not that easy. It went from tour school to leading money winner to Monday qualifying, basically, and a few exemptions at the end. And that's how I got established. And I met Sissy. So that's where it all went down. So when you look at it, I got through tour school. I won my first pro tournament. I used to come down here and do junior tournaments or junior clinics for the PGA guys. And now I live in the state of Mississippi for 31 years. So you wonder why your life goes in certain directions and God's got the plan for it.
Yeah.
Well, that was my direction. It didn't seem like at the time, but what I learned a lot about myself is to keep grinding, never take anything for granted. And I think that's what helped me finally when I started winning and being successful is those grinds before that, knowing, hey, dude, you just Monday qualified like 8 times, or whatever it was. I even played some mini tour events. And I mean,
Sure.
it was tough. And that's the only access you had. And basically mini tours are gambling with your own money. You're putting the money up and, and that's what people see that these guys are making millions. My story's a little like Koepka's in a way.
Yeah.
To the point, of course, he's had a much better career, but it was that same kind of start. I think that's why I relate to him somewhat on that's why I think he's the way he is tough mentally is because he had to go over there. He had to learn to play all over the world. He didn't just get through tour school. You see guys, come out of college with these great careers and they don't get out and they struggle. And the Korn Ferry Tour is wonderful now for them. They've got access to it. I think it's probably a better test over the course of the whole year. And then you get the finals. Q School was always different. It was the most nerve-wracking, you lose your mind type places. I mean, and it was once a year.
Right.
And I think that experience, it's sort of like the Korn Ferry Tour, the finals, the playoffs are sort of like that, but it's not.
Well, the Korn Ferry is a tour. I mean, you have a season-long chase. You have something where you can work. It closely resembles the PGA Tour in that respect. I always looked at Q School. I mean, you know it a lot better than I do, obviously. But I always looked at Q School where, if you just you have to get hot at that time of the year and shoot the scores at a specific time, or else you're back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and I think another thing is it was over a course of 3 or 4 different qualifying. So
Right.
It could be over a 5-6 week period.
Yeah.
So when you were hot through the first stage, you may not have been hot in the second stage. I'll tell you a story. This is how crazy it was back when you played. And back then it was maybe $1,500, $1,700. And one of the cool things that for my career is when my dad was a pro at Machine Gun Mission Country Club back in Marion, Indiana, 35 members got together and put up $1,000 to sponsor me. And that I had money behind me knowing I had some financial backing. So you send in your $1,750, whatever it was for entry. So anybody that had $1,750, basically, right. You could say you had a 2 handicap or less. Well, this guy shows up in a trench coat and walks into the pro shop and says, "Do y'all supply the equipment?"
Perfect.
And you're sitting there going like, "Do I supply the equipment?" And I'm thinking, what the heck? And of course they send him home. But you got stories like that. Now tour school's really expensive. And it's a completely different type of clientele going through it. You don't see that anymore. You could maybe see that in a Monday qualifying.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's
pre-qualifying.
There's all that. There's pre-Q stories that are coming out lately about guys that show up and shoot 98, just to say that they played in a pro event.
Qualifier.
Yeah, they just want to. Yeah, it's the dumbest thing ever.
But that's what you would find sometimes at tour school back in the day.
Right.
And I think when that guy showed up in the trench coat. Without clubs.
That's about it. Yeah, we got to shut this down just a little bit.
Exactly. Red flag came up and they stopped that real quick.
Yeah. I was going to ask you just about, obviously you're leading me right into just, as you said, just the grind and getting yourself into a position where you can be successful. You pick up a handful of wins and you're kind of off to the races, and you get yourself in the conversation to make a Ryder Cup team. And I look back at those Ryder Cups in the 90s. I mean, obviously 91 at Kiowa really just set it off as far as the fierce competition. 93, the one you played in, that's one of my favorites. Obviously 95 with Landy as a captain, and that just at Oak Hill, that was just, devastating loss. And then we can go on and on about, Valderrama 97, the comeback at Brookline 99. But this incredible 93 Ryder Cup over at the Belfry, I mean, I'm looking, if we look back, there's been 3 wins. That's actually the last time that the U.S. retained it on foreign soil. But really, the U.S. has won 3 times in the last 25 years. We have a 3-12 record. I know it's not an original question. I know it's something, but why does Europe beat the U.S. time after time? And some people say, well, they're closer. They have the camaraderie and they want it more. You've played in one, you've seen it up close, and then you're also in the business of talking about it and being an analyst with Golf Channel. As a player, when people say, well, the Europeans want it more, I'm guessing it just drives you up a wall. I mean, do you have any thoughts on what would explain a 3-12 record over the last quarter century?
The way I look at it, back in I almost made the team in 91. My game probably wouldn't have been ready for that, even though I did finish good at the PGA. I wasn't ready for that atmosphere. I think in 93, of course, I went over there. It was, born soul. Tom Watson was the captain, but Tom Watson was loved in England and Scotland. Yeah. I mean, loved. So I think that helped. But, what I was amazed at, and back then we were, my gosh, my team, and I'd have to count it. I think 8 out of the 12 or 7 out of the 12 are in the World Golf Hall of Fame.
That team is awesome. I mean, here, I'll just read it off for people curious. 93, this is the USA team. Watson is the captain. Azinger, Couples, Kite, Lee Jansen, played as a rookie. He's coming in as the U.S. Open champion. Pavin, Payne Stewart, John Cook coming in as a rookie. Davis Love III coming in as a rookie. Chip Beck, and then this is, 2 captains picks. Lanny Watkins, Raymond Floyd. I mean, get out of here. That team was insane.
Any question? Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the cool stories is we flew over we actually went to the White House. and we met President Clinton. And I think Paul had made some kind of remark that got out and whatever, long story short. We actually...
That's surprising. That's surprising that Paul Azinger would say something like that.
Paul, making a comment and Payne repeating it to everybody.
Shocker.
Shocker, exactly. I love Payne and Paul. Both, just love them both. But anyway, so we get down, we meet the president, and he says, this is true, I know you're not going to believe it. He says, would you guys like to go in the Oval Office? Wow, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We actually, as a team, got to go in the Oval Office, sat in the chair. I'm not making this up. You could talk to any of the guys. We sat in the Oval Office, and then we fly over on the Concorde. I'm going like, this is the coolest thing I've ever been part of, And Watson tells us they may have invented this game over here, but we perfected it.
Damn.
Well, I was ready to parachute out.
I was going to say, like, kick a door down for this guy.
I'm ready to jump off the plane. And so we get out, we play practice rounds. And when they play the national anthem, I'm going to get to your question of why I think things change.
You're good.
But when they play the national anthem, and I'm telling you, I respect all those military men and women out there fighting for us. God bless you. Because when they play that national anthem, if you don't get chills, you need to pinch yourself and figure out what's going on. And then I realized, what have I gotten myself into? I'm thinking, here's this little kid from Indiana living in Mississippi. And the only thing that got me through is Golf World had written their preview, and they did all the scouting report, and they said that I had the heart of a lamb and the Europeans would make chopped liver out of me.
Oh, boy. That was dumb.
That was dumb because I got enough redneck in me. Not that my mom and dad would appreciate me calling myself that, but I do. And it inspired me. So the pressure there was to prove. And I think that's how I approached my whole career, is the underdog. And by God, did you tell me I can't do it? I'm going to knock you on your butt and prove you I can. That was my approach. I fought my confidence a lot. But when someone said that to me, then it would, like, all of a sudden I'd go into the psycho mind. So I think I entered it that way. Well, one thing that was cool about Watson is he told us, you prepare the way you would normally for the tournament. Here's our practice round times. You guys are in this foursome, blah, 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 blah. And so we prepared for the actual, first round. I didn't play in the morning in foursomes. Right. And so I just slept in, did whatever. And I'm telling you, Lee Jansen and I, two rookies, go out together, which is like, what's he doing? But he's the current U.S. Open champion. Yeah. Why wouldn't he send him out?
Right.
Duh. And we play Peter Baker and Ian Woosnam. And I get on the first tee, and I'm telling you, it's real. When you say you don't know if you're going to get the ball on the tee, oh, my gosh. I don't even remember if it got on the tee. I may have put it on the ground. I don't know if my hands were staying steady long enough. But I actually played pretty well. Baker made 8,000 feet of putts, and he ends up making a 30-footer on the last hole. I got it 8 feet. He knocks it in. They beat us one up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was so shocked at the level, how good the level was. And I think Watson told us that next night, is expect the
level of play.
Just how good it was.
Yeah.
Just how good everybody's playing under this pressure. Especially coming from Kiowa, where we had won, and it was really raw, just walking and rolling. Well, they weren't any nicer to us over there.
Oh.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't any nicer. If you're thin-skinned, the Ryder Cup, Soul Cup, President, that ain't for you. I don't know what, that's not for you. You need to go play in the, intramural league, something. But all I'm telling you is the next day, I don't know if I'm going to get to play. I'm hoping I am, because I know how good I'm playing. Well, Corey Pavin and I play Sam Torrance and Constantino Roca. Well, we beat them to death. Corey shoots 29 in the front, but what I don't get credit for is I shot 3 under the front.
Yeah, good for you.
But I didn't count. Oh, no, wait. I did count on 9 because I pushed him out of the way. I said, I'm making this putt first. Get out of the way.
That's awesome.
And so, but I was enjoying the whole time. I was embracing the whole thing. I was living on this cloud that I was like, man, this is so cool. We win this, but we're behind going into Sunday. And every night we'd go around the room and we tell, how our experiences was. And I don't know, Sissy says, I know I'm not supposed to talk. I'm just a wife. But do y'all realize where we are and how much they love Tom Watson and how much this game loves Tom Watson? Tom Watson's not losing over here, guys.
She said this.
Wait, hold on.
She said this to you or in a team room?
She does it in the team room. The whole everybody. She goes, and then that goes, that's right, sissy. The will to win will beat mechanical breakdown every time, like I was having out there today. And it was just like, what the heck? I mean, all this stuff sounds cheesy, but for somewhere in the back, not that she was rah-rah, she was just telling what she thought.
Yeah.
I think a couple other wives may have said some things, but she just said it. And I don't remember if anyone remembers it. I truly do. So I'm supposed to play Sam Torrance that night. We find out the parents, but we hear he's got some kind of infected toe and he may not play. And one of the Davis wives, or Robin Love, actually, we thought went into labor. We thought we were going to lose Davis to that, but everything was fine. But one of the other wives on the other squad were having some issues. And my wife, Sissy was 7 months pregnant. It was just like, this is crazy.
There's a lot going on.
And you're talking about behind the scenes. And so they come up to me and they said, now, Jim, be prepared, because if Sam doesn't play, there's a name in the envelope. And I go, you guys put my name in the envelope. And they go, no. Lanny Watkins put his name in the envelope. I go, do what now?
So just to clear this up for people listening, because, I mean, you and I know exactly what you're talking about, but what happens the night before the singles matches at the Ryder Cup is both teams will put a name in the envelope. So if there's any sort of an issue, any sort of an injury, somebody's sick, anything, they have predetermined who is going to sit out. So in this case, you're talking about Lanny Watkins, and obviously he puts his name in the envelope, and it's pretty well known that he did that because, hey, I've been here before. I've played in Ryder Cups. He was a captain's pick that year. So he says, let the guys that qualify have the opportunity to play in the singles. I'll go in the envelope. And then, of course, that's what happens. So just to level set for people listening. So go ahead. So Lanny's in the envelope.
No, that's good. You explained it better than I would. They'd have been so dang confused. They didn't know what I was talking about. They subtitles on the podcast, which is impossible. But I get up there and I'm thinking, I'm just going to go to sleep. No big deal. And I was just like, I prayed. I said, Lord, just give me the strength to do my best. That's all I'm asking. Win, lose, or draw. Just let me keep enjoying this.
Right.
We see the big leaderboard, and I'm telling Tom, I said, man, I hope I get to play Seve. He goes, oh, yeah, you may probably be ready to play him. I said, no, I really want to. I said, this would be great. He goes, okay, all right, whatever. All of a sudden, the ladder moves over. Little old man walks up, takes down Sam Torrance's name, puts it next to Lanny's, put me up against Seve. And we're somewhere in the beginning third of the matches, and Tom looks over at me and goes, well, you got what you prayed for. I said, sure did. So I didn't have time to sleep on it. I had about 2 hours, maybe less than that, to go like, okay, let's rock and roll. So I go to the range. Everything's normal. I see Butch Harmon. We're talking. We're yakking. My mom and dad are over there, my aunt and uncle. And Maria Floyd walks up to me, Raymond's wife. Now, Maria Floyd kept Raymond in line like nobody else could. She was the sweetest, but she was tough. She was tough on old Raymond. And everybody respected Maria. And she walked up to me. She goes, Jim Gallagher? I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, I just went in and put $100 on you to beat Seve. Don't let me down. And I went, holy crap, this got real. I was more nervous to lose and have to face Maria than to lose.
Oh, my God.
And so I'm going like, yes, ma'am, I got him. And so I walk over, and it starts to hit me what's about to happen. And, it's big. And I told Sissy, I said, man, this thing now in the current Ryder Cup so huge, the amphitheater. She goes, it was like that. You just don't remember it. I said, oh, okay. So I get on the first tee, introduce myself. Tom Watson, Lanny are sitting there. Bernard Gallagher sitting there for the Europeans.
Yeah.
I hit it down the left side. Seve hits it offline a little bit. And I hear Gallagher holler at Seve, you'll beat him 7-5, Seve.
Wow.
I froze.
Oh, my God.
I froze, and I turned around to Lanny and Tom, and I said, his blank is going down.
Damn.
I'm taking him down. And so I went from nervous to like, oh, here we go again. You just called me out again. And I played really solid. I think I lost maybe 8. I think I'm 2 or 3 up going at the turn. And when you make the turn, I see Freddie over there playing woozy on 18, and the crowd screaming, Seve, Seve.
Right.
Well, you know how the defensive backs get up in the middle of the game and start waving to the crowd to get them fired up?
Sure.
I start doing that like I'm some kind of a defensive back, going to hit the quarterback.
So you're
like,
egging them on. Bring it on, right?
Yeah, bring it on. I'm ready for it, Of course, TV doesn't have that on there because
No.
there's not as many cameras as there is now, thank God. And I don't know why I did it, but I did. And he kept getting it up and down and up and down. And long story short, I beat him on 16, beat him 3-2. He shakes my hand and he had a tear in his eye. And I just knew how much it meant to him. But he was nothing but a gentleman with me. And I always heard the gamesmanship.
Yeah.
Seve never did that to me. Never did it to me during the match. Was he an intense competitor? Yes. Did he respect me? Yes. And I will always thank him for treating me that way. Maybe he was trying it and I was oblivious to it. I have no idea. But he never to me seemed like he was grinding all day, just trying to get it up and down. And it was so much fun to watch. I got there with him 2 or 3 times and the things he could do. He was under a tree. I remember one time at the PGA at Kemper, and he takes like a 2 or 3 iron and hits it off his knees and knocks it up on the green. And my dad goes, "You know, that was a 2 iron?" I go, "No."
Yeah.
He could do things like that. And for me to walk off there going like, "Oh my God, I just beat maybe Europe's."
Yeah.
I just took their heart, because it was all blue. And at that time, I think Chip had won his match. I had won my match, and it started getting red, white, and blue. And I just remember like, wow, that was cool. And Mom and Dad were there, and Sissy, we walk up. Davis makes the putt. We win the cup or retain the cup or whatever. But we had won it where we retained it.
Right.
We had to run out and watch the other thing. I remember the celebration. They handed me the big champagne bottle, and I didn't know how to open
the magnums. Yeah, it's not a twist off, Jim. I'm just letting you know.
It wasn't a screw in top, so I was like, "This is issues." I hand it to Payne. Of course, Payne and John Cook are on the cover of Golf World because they have it on. Shaking it up, which was fine. They deserved it anyway. But I mean, I remember them asking me at the end. I think Bob Trumpy was the announcer. Somebody came up and he goes, "Jim, what was this for you?" And I said, for me personally, it proved that I could play on this stage and to prove everybody out there in the world that I can flat play. I don't know why I said that because I may say that to you, just kidding, and you've been around me enough to know that it's just fooling around. But I said that, and but I meant it. It's just like, and I got in the press room, and just before we walked in the press room, Paul grabs my face and says, "You are no longer Lamb Chop," from the original article. "You are now called Killer Lamb Chop." Okay. Because I kind of tagged myself as I just call me Lamb Chop. So they were kind of teasing me, but he grabbed my face and said, "Now you're Killer Lamb Chop." They asked the story. They asked about the story in the press room, and I just pretty much laid it on and told them what had happened. And then when I won the tour championship, it was listed on the front page of the magazine, Killer Lamb Chop. Wow. The weird thing of it all, Jeff Russell, who I love, he wrote the article, and he is married to Molly Sullivan, who is the head of Golf Channel.
Oh my God, that's right.
Don't think the world isn't small. So for you people listening in, do not burn a bridge. Because that bridge will cave in and you'll be on it. So that's the thing. I always have that on Jeff, and every time he sees me, he just shakes his head. He even told his kids, he said, I wrote an article I shouldn't have, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Gallagher's been nothing but nice to me since.
Wow. God, that's so cool. All right. So I obviously this is one of my favorite Ryder Cups. I actually watched the highlights last night on YouTube. I'm actually going to put a link to the highlights, on YouTube in the show notes of this episode because it's so well done, and you see some incredible shots. And me as just a fan of this Ryder Cup, gosh, where do I go from here? So let's start with the play between Faldo and Azinger in the singles. I mean, Faldo makes a hole-in-one on 14. Just the incredible. You mentioned it. Just the play was just so good. Obviously, you played 3 matches. You had time to watch, and I think you were done. You were obviously done with your match with Seve before, because I think Zinger. And,
no, that was the match. Those were the matches we ran out to. His and Raymond
right, exactly.
Floyd, we wanted to win the cup. Yeah.
Right. So you're able to watch Floyd. You're able to watch Zinger and Faldo. I mean, what were some of the things you got to see out there after you were done, and you actually got to decompress a little bit and watch and be a fan of this incredible stage? What were some of your memories of what you got to see at that time?
That was the crazy part. We had retained it, but we wanted to win it. We didn't want to retain it, and we were making this great comeback. I remember Paul telling us that Faldo, either after he made the hole-in-one or some point, well, y'all got the cup. Just there was on one of the holes, he goes, good. And he goes, you've all got the cup. And Paul gave him the putt. Paul goes, wait a second. They may have retained it, but we hadn't won it yet. So it was kind of like, we still got to play. And Raymond, here's Raymond who's in his 50s.
51 years old. 51 years old.
Yeah. And and that's the coolest part. And I would take this as one of the memories, not even just maybe those 2 matches, but the whole week. Those veterans for that week, and maybe since then too, and that's a bond you always will have for the rest of your life. And I did not answer your question about why I think they're winning. I'm going to answer it maybe in this. But there's a bond that you have for the rest of your life with those other 11 guys and their wives and caddies and all that stuff. That forever. But those guys set you on that you're equal to them, that they're no longer multi-major champions. And
right.
You get the confidence like Raymond Floyd is pulling for me.
Yeah.
Or, Lanny Watkins is pulling for me. I think when you look back at all our teams, and I know it took about an hour to answer your first question, but I think when you look back there, Europe was just starting. They had 4 or 5 really good players.
Yeah.
And they would wear their guys out playing them every match. And they had some guys up and coming. Well, we were deeper.
Yes.
It's reversed now.
Right.
The game is a worldwide game. Europe now is as good as we are in a lot of parts of it. We may, during the season, win majors, blah, blah, blah. The game is a world game. Do the Europeans want it more than the Americans? No, I don't think so.
Right.
I think this younger crew is tighter and closer. That's great. It's not a fraternity. It's who wants to win. Give me 11, 12 guys who want to win. I don't care if they're friends, enemies, but for that 1 week, they put their egos aside and they play as a team for one common goal, and that's to win the Ryder Cup. That, to me, is what it's all about. That, I think, is what Europe does. I think we're trying to get to that. I think we've overthought this whole thing with this, whole crew they got of all the different things. And
task force and all that stuff.
And all the strategies, whatever your task force, whatever you want to call it, we're just searching for it. Make the putts. Make the putts when it counts. That's what's happened. These Ryder Cups have been close.
Yeah.
The team that wins makes the putts. So give me guys that can make putts. I think that's the biggest thing, that they're good. Give them credit. They're good players. They play well as a team for whatever reason. They've matched them up. I thought one of the cool things, McGinley might have been the best ever, is they got time to put them together in the regular pairings to see how they would play, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, there's one thing, I don't know if you would play with your best friend any better than, obviously you wouldn't want to play with somebody you hate.
Sure.
But if your games were equal, similar in foursomes is the toughest format. We used to blow them away in foursomes. That's not the case anymore. They're good. We just, I don't have the answer. If it was, they'd make me the captain. But I think a lot of it is give me 12 guys who want to drop their egos no matter what. There's no drama. I think if you can keep the drama out, the captains this time around with Steve picking 6 people, and it's like they either haven't made it on points, maybe not as playing as well. So you go down the list unless there's some reason you don't. I mean, get the guys that played the best. Those 12 guys who played the best for now an extra year. Well, I guess they stopped some of the points, but just you look at the guys that current play is important, but we always made such a big deal out of picks. Well, usually the picks hadn't played good enough to make it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then we expect them to play in 5 matches. I think the thing is, what you got to remember, if you get the depth these teams are now, not everybody's going to play all 5 because that's a long week. I did it in the President's Cup, and I remember telling Zinger, I don't know if I can go anymore. He goes, I'm riding you till you die.
Oh, God.
Okay. And that was, hey, all right, I got it. I'm so drop your ego, go play. I think the teams now for the American team, I think they grew up junior golf a little bit. There's going to be some drama. I'm not going to say there's not. But for that week, they just got to drop their egos and play for that one comment. And not try so hard. I think a lot of it, they just try too dang hard. I know that sounds pretty simplified, but it's just, I don't think the golf course in Paris set up for their games. I think that was set up the other way around for them, and Europe just played better. There is an element of home field, a home golf course. I don't know if Whistling Straits obviously favors big hitters or whatever, but when that crowd cheers for you, the biggest thing you got to pay attention to if you're a rookie is they're going to boo you and cheer against you when you miss a putt.
Yeah.
That's the unnerving part. And once you get over that and get used to the crowds and stay focused, because now you You got to just play your game. You got to play the game you can. And it's always amazing to see people who are robots get in the Ryder Cup or even the Solheim Cup. Brittany Altamari in the Solheim Cup is really a quiet, sweet girl, man, and she is fist pumping and going and going. You'll see probably Patrick Cantlay doing the same thing, fist pumping, jumping around. Just it brings the best out of everybody, and I think that's the biggest thing. These competitions, the level of play under the pressure is phenomenal.
Yep.
And if the person can get it done, that's the answer to it. I think great putting does it. I think that's that one common goal. And like you said, 93 is the last time we won over there, and I was on that team. That's just impossible to believe that, but it's a fact.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens at Whistling Straits. I think that the U.S. team, even this young, the young players that we're going to have, I think you're right. We're kind of reshuffling and rebuilding as far as getting younger guys in there that maybe don't have as much scar tissue, obviously, from previous losses. But yeah, the drama. I mean, I don't know how, obviously how the media is. There's going to be a lot of focus on Brooks and Bryson. Doesn't matter what the issue is. There's going to be focus on it. And players are going to need to fight past that. I think it'd be interesting to, call me crazy, but I say put them both together and say, hey, leave your egos. And, if you do something stupid and you're not really fighting for the cup and fighting for this team, it's going to be pretty evident because you're going to be on that stage together. That'd be a really quick way to squash that.
I think, and I love Steve Stricker. I think he's one of the finest men that's played the game. And I think for me, Tom Watson was respected by so many people and I think he had the advantage of having veterans who would give him advice. Tom still made the decision because you're not going to tell Tom one way or the other, but I think he had that advantage. I think we kept for years going with the same old crew.
Yeah.
And the fear of, send a rookie out there. Well, by God, they've won two, they've won a major. They've won this. I mean, they're not rookies. It's not like they've never played the game. Yeah, they're new to this atmosphere. But sometimes if a rookie approaches like, hey, no one expects me to do anything. I'm just going to go out and have fun and kick butt.
Yep.
That's how you have to approach it. That's how I approached it. But I think the Bryson and the Koepka thing is going to be, it's going to be talked about. It's how do they handle it? I don't have the answer other than I tell them, boys, grow up. Let's make this for this week. Y'all can fight next week.
Yep.
But kiss and make up this week and let's go.
Yep.
That's my advice.
Yeah. I'm there. I didn't want to move past this, but obviously Phil wins the PGA Championship. A lot of people probably thought he was going to be a shoo-in to make the team, but really he just, he's going to be vice captain. His play this summer obviously has suffered and he's not going to be playing. But we talk about Ray Floyd. Please tell me, other than obviously that's a great one about Maria Floyd, but please tell me you have a Ray Floyd story to share. I mean, I can't fathom what that must have been like to be in the team room with a guy like that.
He just looks at you, and you're just like, okay, yeah,
yes.
Whatever you want, yes sir.
Yes, sir.
Don't let you down. But no, it's like he went from this, like he could look right through you to looking at you and like, hey, man, you're a great player. Remember that. You can do this. I mean, he coached Freddie Couples for how many Ryder Cups?
Yeah.
I mean, but he had that ability, and he dropped his ego at the door that week and became a team player. I'm not saying – I'm saying for any team. This is Europe or you have to do that. You just have to do that. And if you got a young guy, put him with a veteran. Let him – I think that's why the pods kind of make some sense because personalities or whatever. But for Raymond, when he tells you you're great and you can do it, you believe it.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest story I take from that, other than years after that, he would always invite me when we were out of his house, and he was always kind to me. He's kind to me to this day. That's that bond. But when he looked at me and told me, you're a great player, well, let's go out and do it. That's the story.
Hypnotized you.
Yeah, wow. It's like that's why Freddie could walk across water with him. And Freddie was great, but he convinced Freddie that he could walk across the lake, and Freddie tried, and maybe get halfway and then sink. But, I just think that's a story with Raymond. It wasn't like he came up with anything specific other than, I don't know this, but I remember hearing things that when they were talking about the second day, who they were going to sit, not sit. And I think they went to bat for me because I was playing so well. I'd heard that. I have no idea if that's true, but the veterans, and I think Raymond was a big part of that. Like, hey, I played 2 practice rounds where the kid's playing good. Throw him in. Don't be afraid to do it. That I think is true. I wouldn't doubt that. I don't have, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't in that meeting or wasn't there with him, but
sure.
I don't doubt that Raymond told me. I remember the first time I ever got paired with him, I was so intimidated. It's like playing with J.C. Sneed. J.C. Sneed to this day loves me. Couldn't be nicer to me. Raymond walked off the last green at Hartford, shook my hand and said, "Young man, you're going to have a long, great career out here." Oh my God.
Oh my
you don't
God.
think that?
Yeah, you just
that's
got
it.
knighted.
That's the
knighted.
Raymond story.
You were knighted.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. My goal when I first got on tour is to play with all the veterans and be paired with them. So I don't know why I was trying to prove to them that I could play, because they probably don't give a rat's about whether I did or not. But one thing, my friend and my kind of mentor was Bruce Litsky. And this needs to be on. This is it. Because along with my wife, no one on tour had a bigger influence in my career and my life than Bruce. We were both on the Tommy Armour staff. He would include me. He's 10 years older than me. We played every practice round because he didn't only play about 16, 18 events. We played every practice round together, showed up at 9, and he always included me with the Curtis Stranges and all those guys of that era. And I always felt welcomed in there because of Bruce. And I remember him after the PGA, and he beat me. He and I would have a contest for in front of the Tommy Armour big convention. Whoever won had the bragging rights for a year. Well, I think I inspired Bruce's career to go longer than it did because he kept playing and he kept winning and doing this and that. And I remember him walking off, and he made this long cut at 18 to beat me at Crooked Stick. And he walked in the media room. I didn't see this till later. I just saw it again a few weeks ago. And it said they were talking about me. And he goes, "I always knew Jimmy was going to be good. I just hope he knows how good he's going to be, because he's going to be a great player. I hate to say this, but he's the next big thing." Wow. When someone like that tells you that, if I look back at my career, I should have won more. I honestly won 5 times. I should have won 10. I don't think I underachieved. I wish I'd known then what I know now.
Right.
I would, and everybody could say that. But just the confidence, or do a certain thing and get upset with yourself. I wish I wouldn't have done that as much. My wife told me I've thrown away 4 kids' scholarships or 4 kids of college, getting mad at myself, and that's probably true. And that's when we were playing for the money they're playing for now. I would just get frustrated with myself and go 2 or 3 holes and go off the air and then finally come back. But by that time, you've already thrown shots away. So I think if I could have really taken Bruce's advice, I did on a lot of things, because he taught me how to be a good husband and a good dad, and also be a good professional. And no one other than maybe Jack Nicklaus could do what he did as far as keeping and balancing family and golf like he did. And then, when I got to see him, before he passed away, it was just, I walked out there just in tears, because, this guy, he took me in. He was my mentor. Other than my dad, he was as close a friend as I had out there. And it was guys like that really kept me going and inspired me, because I fought my confidence. People look at me now, they're thinking, "Oh, he's confident," but that's all front. It's everybody's a little insecure in their ways, but the thing was, when I got in the heat, I felt more comfortable in the heat trying to win than any other time during the week. Of course, when you're barely making the cut, that's more nerve-wracking because you're not playing very well.
Right.
What you got to remember, and the advice I give anyone out there playing, when you're in the heat, you're playing well. Don't doubt that. The tougher part is when you're barely making the cut and you're struggling. That's when that's when you're really nervous. And I think that's kind of the things. I just watched him play. I watched how he played practice rounds. I watched how he managed himself, how he conducted himself. And I'll always be grateful for that. And I miss him dearly to this day.
Do you think that the money out there is actually hurting players' ability to go beyond themselves and just reach that next level, where the comfort of just knowing that a T25 is still is paying quite a bit of money? I mean, I'm just listening to what you're talking about. I'm listening to what you're talking about, your relationships with the players, and then how you just the game was elevated at the Ryder Cup. Is it possibly hurting the development of players to have that much money out there, where if you're like 90th on the money list, you're still making over $1 million, well over $1 million?
It could. I would say this tonight. My advice to the young guys out there: you think that money you're making now is going to last you forever? Well, I didn't. I lived a very modest life, and if you're living the high life, it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
And I think when we get back to the Only One Shot Golf podcast and the elite player and what separates them, that's what separates the elite from the average. It's that person who wants to go the extra mile, but not trying to finish 25th, that wants to finish top 10 even when they don't have their best stuff. That's the elite player. The people who are driven like that are the ones that are succeeding like that. Yes, all of a sudden 90 guys make $1 million. Whoo, I got life by the butt. You're one swing away from losing your card and never having that again. So you got to keep that in your mind. I don't think you should play with fear, because that's a little more of my personality, but that's kind of how I approached it. Is I don't want to go back to where I was. I don't want to go back and try to play the mini tours or go back and try to play Corn Ferry Tour. I think that's what separates the elite from the average, is that person that is not satisfied with 25th, even though you may make. I looked at the Tour Championship. I think when I won it, I won 540. I think that was 26th place or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So the money is crazy good for them, but I think it's that guy that wants to go that extra mile, or that gal wants to go that extra mile to get to that next level, because you can get complacent and you can have 20 million in the bank, and maybe it is enough money forever, but it's not about that. It's your personal goals and what you want to achieve. And I wanted to be the best I could be. And the one thing you don't want to do is have any regrets. I don't know that I regret anything, because I quit playing at 40 to spend 10 years with my kids.
Yeah.
So they would know me. I don't regret that. I would never change that ever again. Could I have tried to grind it out, maybe made several more million? Yes, but I wouldn't know my kids and have the relationship with them now. That was way more important to me. And fortunately, I've been blessed to be able to work for Golf Channel for 8 years, stay in the game, enjoy my grandkids, and enjoy those things. But money can spoil it if you're not careful. And I think, you gotta be aware of that. But it's that elite golfer, not just juniors, but elite golfers that can separate themselves from that and go that extra mile to be great.
Well, I'm going to get you out of here, but before I do that, let's talk a little bit more about just, real quickly about your podcast. Only One Shot, it's about, elite junior golfers. What right now, I know you've had a lot of college coaches, you've had, I've had juniors on there. What right now, and we're going to put links to your podcast in the show notes of this episode, obviously, what excites you right now about the current status of junior golf? And then conversely, what kind of gives you the most maybe pause or concern? Maybe what are some of the pitfalls that maybe you're seeing some of the kids fall into? Maybe just kind of give me a brief overview of what your thoughts are right now on the state of junior golf.
I think there's so many great junior golfers out there. I think there's so many good teachers. The equipment's out there. My suggestion to whether they're juniors or whatever is, when you stick with equipment, don't just change because someone's going to give you something. But I think you just don't get caught up in rankings. Be driven to be the best you can. And when you're picking colleges, narrow it down to 5. And you, like I said, pick the one you think you'd be most comfortable with. But I think for junior golfers out there, there's so much out there. And just play. Don't stand on the range just to stand on the range. I see so many kids doing that, even college kids. They sit on the range. And, are you practicing with any purpose, or are you just out there hitting balls? So that is probably more on the concern part of it. But I think when you look at junior golfers, there's so many good ones. And find a place and do it in levels like, hey, I'm doing it at my local level, doing it state, doing it regional. Go play a Southeastern Junior Golf Tour. Then maybe go play some AJGA.
Yeah.
Work it in that cycle. Beat the people you're playing with, then go to the next level.
Yep.
And I think for parents, be careful you don't just throw them in and it's all like, well, he's got to be on the AJGA event. This is not a cut to the AJGA. They may not be ready for that. Like my oldest was not ready for that mentally. But I think the kids are so much better prepared than I was. We only had a handful of events. You played locally and you played the state. You hoped your coach found you, sends you a letter, and you're all excited. Now it's all on Instagram. I would tell every kid this. When you're playing a tournament, be careful of social media. Do not get on Instagram and Twitter and all that crap when you're playing. Do not read the good stuff. Do not read the bad stuff, because it is a cesspool trying to bring you down because someone has a click that would never say that in your face. And you as a kid, tweet responsibly, put the right pictures on there, be smart about it. I know you're trying to promote yourself. That's my concern, is
Right.
They're trying to promote themselves. Now college kids are going to get paid to do things. Be careful who you associate yourself with. Do it because you love the game. Don't do it for the other reasons. There's plenty of time. Stay in college, get your degree, play for 4 years, unless you're just winning every event, because pro golf will always be there. It's not the greatest life until you make it. It looks great, but it's the struggle to get there. So for junior golfers, keep working hard, play a lot of golf. Don't just practice. If you are practicing, practice with a purpose. Don't put that crap on Instagram. Stay off that stuff and just pay attention to what you're out there. That's my advice for anybody. I try to stay off of it. I do a little bit to promote I'll put some grandkid pictures up there, maybe to promote the podcast. But,
sure.
I try to keep a low profile. I'm not going to get on there and get into the arguments. And there's going to be people watch my broadcast are going to say, you're an idiot, you're horrible. It's hard because nobody likes to be told something like that. But don't read it while you're trying to play. That I've seen so many kids do it, and it breaks them down. And you wonder why kids are struggling, because they are more worried about the clicks and followers. And I think that's what you got to be aware of. And I think that's for anybody. And now with the college kids being able to get paid, they're trying to do more promotions. Just be aware of what you're chasing. You may not like what you catch.
Awesome advice. I love what you just said about the junior golfers, because that's something that, here at the back of the range, I'm focused a lot on the amateur game, collegiate game, and more, more and more on the juniors. And exactly what you said. It's really good advice. I will put, as I said, I'm going to put a link to this episode, or put a link to your podcast in the show notes of this episode. Got to have you back on again. I feel like we left a lot on the table, so I got to have you back on again. But for now, thanks so much for stopping by the back of the range, and I'll see you soon.
I appreciate you having me on. I got 60 years of stories, so we can go on and on and on. But thanks for having me on. And remember, in life or golf, you may have only one shot. You got to make it count.
And there you have it. Special thanks to Jim Gallagher Jr. for joining me on this episode here at the Back of the Range. Don't forget, follow along on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Every episode is available at thebackoftherange.com. Enjoy the Ryder Cup, and we'll see you next time here at the Back of the Range.